Hi everyone, and thanks for tuning in. Happy New Year. I took some time off for the holidays, but now I am back for 2026, and we are so back. So things have been a little bit slow on the Blake Lively and Justin Baldoni case, as far as I can tell. I do still have some catching up to do on that case. I need to go through the docket and see if there's, what's going on over there. But there's a lot of other things going on as well that I'm interested in and want to cover. And so today's video, as you can tell, is on a different subject. So today we're going to talk about the YouTube AI video editing controversy. This story originally hit headlines in, I believe it was August of last year, and really people were going to Reddit and reporting this issue earlier than that. I believe it really started taking off on social media around June 2025 or July, around the summer of 2025. But I wanted to talk about it today because if you're familiar with this story, you will know that YouTube issued a response and they gave a solution to the problem. But I argue that their solution isn't necessarily really a solution. And the second reason why I want to talk about it is because AI is becoming so embedded in our society, and it's only going to become more so as time goes on. And this technology, while it's very interesting, there are concerns around it and how it is affecting our relationship with reality. I wonder if this is going to set a precedent for what other social media companies might do in the future, or other companies that are not related to social media. So I want to kind of go in order based on how this kind of played out, just in case you are not familiar with what happened here. That way we'll all be on the same page. And then I want to read a couple of articles, and we will see where we're at from there. To set the stage of what was initially happening, in case you are not familiar with this whole controversy, people were noticing that when they uploaded content to YouTube Shorts, that it looked a little odd. It had like just a weird look to it. And so people started going to Reddit and voicing their concerns about this. And so I'm going to show you one of the first, and as you can see, this was 7 months ago. So this was one of the first posts that really took off. And as you can see, because it took off, they went and edited in, some updates that happened. But I want to look at the original post first. So this was about 7 months ago, and this user was basically saying that they noticed that things looked weird. And they were comparing Instagram Reels to YouTube Shorts, and they were using Hank Green as an example. And so they did some really great work where they screenshot what it looked like on Instagram, the content that they were looking at, and then what it looked like on YouTube. And so this is the YouTube version, same content. But you can see, you kind of have to look closely. It is very subtle, but if you do look closely, you can see that the skin looks a little odd. It looks a little wax figure is what some people were saying, like it looks waxy. It does not look like it does when you upload it to another platform, but in this case, Instagram. So this is the Instagram version, and this was the YouTube version. And then they went even further and really, grabbed different screenshots and punched in so you could really see the difference, because you most notice this AI edit when you're looking at the ears, when you're looking at the skin, anything with high contrast. This Reddit post is one that really took off early on, where, because I really believe it's because the person did such a good job of screenshotting, and showing the difference that it became undeniable. So now I want to show you this one because it will illustrate, I hope, to you why many YouTubers, and myself included, are concerned about what was done here. So you can see here that this is what what YouTube did to the video after he uploaded it to YouTube Shorts, and this is the original. So again, it's very subtle. Well, in this case, to me, it's not very subtle. You can definitely see it just looks waxy. I think waxy is a good way to describe it. It looks waxy. It looks a little like over sharpened, maybe. It looks, it doesn't look quite right. I have a YouTube channel which is made by running my videos through a real VCR to give it an authentic 80s aesthetic. A big part of the video's charm is the VHS look and the grainy, washed out video quality. So then he explains that he noticed when he would upload to YouTube that it looked weird. And he says, it appears that this feature cannot be disabled. And I haven't found a way to have this feature turned off. It is ridiculous that YouTube can add features like this that completely change the content of what is uploaded to look more HD, quote unquote, when instead it looks like plastic and might ruin what a creator was originally intending on showing. Just crazy that this stuff can happen. So exactly, and this is what I'm getting at and why I ultimately, am disappointed with the decision that YouTube made in regards to adding this filter and there's the whole thing, the whole rollout of how this was done, I'm not happy about. And ultimately this is why, and I think this post gets to the heart of it, because many people come to YouTube and create things that are different and unique, and it's meant to represent their point of view. And maybe they intentionally want it to look more choppy, just like this person. This person intentionally was doing extra work to give his videos a certain aesthetic, to give it a certain vibe, because that's what he wanted to put out. And so to have YouTube decide on his behalf, we've decided we're going to sharpen the video, we're going to add all this stuff to it because we just feel like it, is kind of, it's not okay. It's really not. And then they didn't tell anybody. And then at the time, of course, there was no way to turn it off. So they just added the feature, told nobody about it. And it seems like they just expected people to not notice. That's what I guess they were thinking. We'll see, because we're going to go through YouTube's response as well in a moment. But I think that, this is what really gets to the heart, or this really gets to the heart of the issue. And there's a couple of other creators too that made some great points. Okay, so as you can see, this is Rhett, I believe that's how you say his name, Rhett Skull's YouTube video. And this video went very viral, and it was talking about this issue. He went through his whole experience with it, and he talked about his opinions and how he felt like it was, that it put him in an odd position as a creator. And again, I agree with him. And so I want to play just a clip. I highly recommend, in fact, I'm going to like the video here. I already watched it in full, but I highly recommend going and watching this video. I will try to remember to include it in the description below. Watch the video in full. It's very well done.
Rhett playing this Gretsch guitar. The trust of my audience is the most important thing that I have as a YouTube creator. Whether or not you like my content or agree with what I have to say, underneath all of that is this underlying foundation that you trust what I'm making and what I'm saying and what I'm doing is truly me. It is my real opinion. It is my real thought. It is my real work. And replacing or enhancing my work without my consent or knowledge with some kind of AI upscaling system, not only I think erodes that trust with the audience, but it also erodes my trust in the platform of YouTube. If they're going to roll this kind of thing out without my knowledge or permission, what else are they doing in the background with my content and with my data in order to optimize the platform or to increase safety? All this stuff.
Exactly. We already are having a problem with knowing what is real and what is not. We already have a problem with trusting our media sources and trusting where we're getting information from. AI is only making that 200 times worse. I agree with Rhett that one of the final things that we have is this kind of, is the trust, is this like, I'm not using AI, or I am who I say I am. Like, I'm sitting here in front of this camera, I'm talking to you, this is a real person, that is becoming harder and harder to hold on to. You have the right as a consumer to decide what type of content you want to consume. And if you don't want to consume AI content, you should have the freedom to do that. And even further, the creator should have the decision, or be able to make the decision on whether or not they want AI to be implemented into their work. So now I want to go to another YouTuber and reference what they said, because they also said something that was quite interesting. And I wanted to include it in this video. So let me get that set up for you. Okay, so this is a video from Tech Linked. And again, I will try my best to remember to include this video in the description box below. Please go and watch the video in full, because it actually had a lot of interesting things in it as well. But I'm only going to show you a short clip of this video.
Kick in around that time. Now, why YouTube is making every short look even more gross than they already tend to is anyone's guess, but some are theorizing it's to get people used to AI looking videos, so they'll be ready for the AI content flood once YouTube fully adds the VO3 AI video generator into its shorts tools.
I think that that is a good point, an interesting theory, that maybe they're trying to, the whole point of this is to prime us so that when YouTube is flooded, I mean, it already kind of is flooded with AI content, but I guess I need to look into that VO thing that he mentioned in that in the video. But I guess whenever that thing is supposed to arrive, I guess AI content will be so embedded into YouTube that it will be, you know, I guess worse than it is right now. And so perhaps this was a way to kind of get our eyes adjusted and used to looking at AI content. That is an interesting theory. And maybe, because the fact that they didn't say anything about it, you know, it makes you wonder why they didn't just come out and say, oh, we've added some new features, here's one of them, and then, you know, move on. They could have easily done that. So now I want to show you what YouTube said in response, because this is where, you know, we're going to get into whether or not the response was adequate. Okay, so this is a Twitter post from the YouTube liaison who is speaking officially on behalf of YouTube. And so this was part of YouTube's official response. And so this is people, especially after the YouTube video came out from Rhett, people really started, you know, tagging YouTube, being like, what's going on? Why are you doing this? You know, all the things. And so finally, after some time, we get YouTube liaison replying, and he did this on August 20th, 2025. And so he said, no generative AI and no upscaling. So he's replying to this one question, but there was, of course, many questions being thrown at them. And so maybe it's worth reading this question. So this person asked if it was true that YouTube was putting AI into the shorts, YouTube shorts. And they said, is this true? YouTube upscaling our shorts? If this isn't true, can you provide why it is misinformation? Okay, and so here he is replying, and he says, no generative AI and no upscaling. We're running an experiment on select YouTube shorts that uses traditional machine learning technology to unblur, denoise, and improve clarity in videos during processing, similar to what a modern smartphone does when you record a video. YouTube is always working on ways to provide the best video quality and experience possible, and will continue to take creator and viewer feedback into consideration as we iterate and improve on these features. Okay, so a very corporate-y response, right? But take note of the fact that he says, we're running an experiment, and he said on select YouTube shorts, and then he basically said that this is very similar to what you already have. This is similar to what your smartphone does. It's just traditional machine learning. Keep that in mind too, because as we go through some of these articles in the future, they're going to call some of this response into question, and they're going to have an expert talking about why some of this, what he's saying here, especially this part about the machine learning, is a little bit misleading. Okay, so that was the original, the first thing that YouTube said. And then very shortly after, the official Team YouTube account quote tweeted this and added a little bit to it and said, because people were still not happy and continuing to tag and continuing to be upset, And so Team YouTube quote tweeted the YouTube liaison, and then they said, "We hear you and we want to clear things up. This is from an experiment." So again, take note that they're saying experiment again. They're saying experiment a lot, well, at least twice in their formal response. "This is from an experiment to improve, that's very, subjective, improve video quality with traditional machine learning, not generative AI," and then more from YouTube Insider here. So then they quote what he said, which was a little bit more, in depth, but still. So again, like I say, just notice how they too are doubling down on the fact that this was just an experiment and that they're using traditional machine learning and not generative AI. They're taking steps to make sure that you understand that this is not generative AI, that this is machine learning, traditional machine learning. Okay. So, of course, people keep not happy about that, right? And so then YouTube Liaison adds on one final thing after people, keep voicing their concerns. And so YouTube Liaison comes back and he tweets his original, and then he says, "Creators, we've heard your feedback on YouTube's de-blurring and denoising shorts." Notice how in this tweet, and this is a couple of days later, August 26th, but notice how at this point, he's just now calling it de-blurring and denoising. He's no longer even saying AI anymore, but that could be because he quote tweeted this and maybe he's thinking, I don't need to say AI again. But still, just notice that. I'm noticing that it feels to me like they're trying to, it does feel to me like they're trying to downplay it upon each statement that they issue. They are removing the language removing more and more language around AI as much as possible. It feels like they're trying to downplay what was actually happening just a little bit. So then, so he says, "We've heard your feedback on YouTube's de-blurring and denoising shorts. There's a lot of good stuff coming in that pipeline, to be honest. But if it's not for you," which is a little, "we're working on an opt-out. Stay tuned." Okay, so this is the part of the response, or this would have been the final thing that to my knowledge, that YouTube said about it. So basically they said, "Okay, we hear you. You're saying, some of you are saying you don't want this. So we'll work on having an opt-out, button for you so that you don't have to have this automatically applied to your content." There was a reply down here that I want to go through that I think captured exactly my opinion about this to a T. So let me see if I can find it. Here it is. It came from Reed Southern, and I like what he said exactly. He captured my sentiment exactly. So he says, "Opt-out isn't good enough. This is the sort of thing that should be opt-in. It shouldn't be up to creators to play," I think is what he meant to say, "to play whack-a-mole with new AI features they didn't ask for." And I completely agree. I understand that the opt-out probably feels like a solution to YouTube. But in this specific situation, you are fundamentally changing the final product of something that somebody else created. It's not simply, to me, calling it de-blurring and denoising is downplaying it. That's not quite what it is. You are adding AI to a video, and it is producing something in the final product that some creators do not want. It's not. It is a preference. I would argue de-blurring and denoising wouldn't be, I don't think, something people would be up in arms about. That's not what the people are upset about. I think what the people are upset about is this de-blurring and denoising that you claim that you're doing is being done with AI, and it's not. It's making the videos look like deep fakes. And that is what the people are upset about. They don't want their content to appear like it is fake. I agree with Reed Sutherland that when it comes to this specific thing, this should be something that creators opt into. They can have the feature there. They can say, "Hey, we have this available to you if you want it. And here's how you go in and turn it on if you want it." It should not be something that we're all made to have to go in and turn off. Now I want to go through some of the reporting that was done, because I think there was some really good articles written about this. So we have 2 articles that I want to get through, and then we will be done. Okay, so here's the article from the BBC. I feel like they did some great reporting on this whole thing, and so I wanted to go through this article. And so the title is YouTube secretly used AI to edit people's videos. The results could bend reality. Okay. YouTube made AI enhancement to videos without telling users or asking permission. As AI quietly mediates our world, what happens to our shared connection with real life? Okay, and so in the first paragraph, they just go through what happened in the YouTube video. And so I kind of want to start here on the second paragraph. In recent months, YouTube has secretly used artificial intelligence to tweak people's videos without letting them know or asking permission. Wrinkles in shirts seem more defined. Skin is sharper in some places and smoother in others. Pay close attention to ears, and you may notice them warp. These changes are small, barely visible without a side-by-side comparison. Yet, some disturbed YouTubers say it gives their content a subtle and unwelcome AI-generated feeling. There's a larger trend at play. A growing share of reality is pre-processed by AI before it reaches us. Eventually, the question won't be whether you can tell the difference, but whether it's eroding our ties to the world around us. And that's another part that I don't even think I've touched on yet in this video, because I've mostly been focusing on the fact that it kind of erodes the trust between the creator and their audience. But even larger, what about our ties to the world around us? What about our ability to know when we look at something online whether or not we can accept that as truth or not? Now, I know many people will say, oh, so just look at everything as fake. But it's like, okay, so you want to live in a world where we're literally, I don't know, everything you see on social media, you just need to assume is fake automatically? Do we want to live in a world like that? I don't know. A lot of people get their news on social media. So I don't know. I think eroding our ties to the world around us is not a good thing. I don't think that that's a good thing. And I think we have the ability to still use this technology and have this technology in our life without sacrificing our tie to the world, without sacrificing our tie to reality. I think that there is a path forward where we can have both. But right now, it seems like these companies want to lean into us not knowing. Okay, then again, they talk more with Rhett about his video, but I do like the quote that they included here from him. He said, "If I wanted this terrible over-sharpening, I would have done it myself. But the bigger thing is it looks AI generated. I think that deeply misrepresents me and what I do and my voice on the internet. It could potentially erode the trust I have with my audience in a small way. It just bothers me." And I agree, Rhett. I agree. And then they talked about, this paragraph just talks about how it was also on YouTube and that that it was also being reported on Reddit and all that. And then they go through YouTube's response. Now, this is the part that I mentioned earlier when I said take note of how YouTube kept saying this is an experiment and we're using machine learning. So we're going to get into an expert in this article who's going to talk a little bit about that. It's certainly true that modern smartphones come with built-in AI features that can enhance image and video quality. But that's an entirely different affair. So according to Samuel Woolley, who is the chair of disinformation studies, which I think is interesting, at the University of Pittsburgh in the United States. You can make decisions about what you want your phone to do and whether to turn on certain features. What we have here is a company manipulating content from leading users that is then being distributed to a public audience without the consent of the people who produce the videos. Now that's coming from Sam Woolley. And again, I completely agree. This is not the same as, your phone does some compressing, your phone does some stuff here and there. Yes, first of all, we have the ability to turn that on and off. That's number one. And when this first was rolled out, creators were not able to turn off this AI shorts thing. So that's the first one major difference. And then, but I think what's more different or what's more important and what's a major difference, is that this is a company that manipulated content and then distributed it to the public. So this is another point that I meant to make. In YouTube's official response, let me just start there. They kept talking about experiment. Remember, I asked you to take note of that? To me, when I hear the word experiment, I think, okay, that should have been kept over there with you guys. That should have been kept away from the public. When I hear experiment, I think laboratory, I think private. I definitely think private. I don't think this is something that we're going to unleash to the public. But in any event, I agree with Samuel Woolley here that this is not the same thing. You know, the way that YouTube is trying to frame this to the public is that, oh, this is nothing. This is what your phone already does. We're just denoising and deblurring. Like, we're not using generative AI. This is machine learning. This is like not a big deal at all. And I like that they have this quote in here from him where he's really, you know, drilling down on that point that this is not the same as what your phone does, number one. And let's actually name what actually happened here, which was a company manipulating content without the consent of anyone and then disseminating it to the public. That's really what happened. And there's more quotes here from him that are really good, so let's keep going. Woolley argues YouTube's choice of words feel like a misdirection. And then he says, I think using the term machine learning is an attempt to obscure the fact that they used AI because of concerns surrounding the technology. Machine learning is, in fact, a subfield of artificial intelligence. So, again, I agree with Mr. Woolley. YouTube is, in their official reply, their official statement, they are continuing to say, they're making sure to say, this is machine learning, this is not generative AI. Because they're trying to make it sound like it's not the same thing. They're trying to say, no, we're not using AI, we're not doing any of that. We're using machine learning to help denoise and deblur your videos. The same thing that your phone does. It's all the same, but it's really not. And so I like that they have this quote in here that you know, from Woolley that says that this is really, it feels like they're being manipulative. It feels like this is a misdirection. Machine learning is a subfield of artificial intelligence. So they're telling you that it is artificial intelligence. YouTube is using artificial intelligence, but they're trying to split hairs and make it sound like it's not artificial intelligence. Richie shares additional details in a follow-up post, drawing a line between traditional machine learning and generative AI. Where an algorithm creates entirely new content by learning patterns in vast data sets. Woolley, however, says this isn't a meaningful distinction here. Exactly. Regardless, the move is indicative of how AI continues to add additional steps between us and the information and media we consume, often in ways you'd never notice at first glance. So yeah, this is the part that, you know, I don't love. I don't like adding additional steps between us and the information that we consume. Because I care very much personally about media literacy. I think that that's extremely important. I also think that our media is important to society. I know that media is getting a bad rap lately, and I'm not even going to argue with you that it's not a little bit warranted in some cases, but our media is still a very valuable thing in our society. And does it need to be criticized? Yes. But we need it. We need the free press. We need freedom of speech, obviously. And so when I see things like this happening, it does ring some alarms for me, because I'm not sure I think it's a good idea or it's a good thing to be adding additional steps between the people and information. And I understand that this here might be a small thing because it's just about denoising and deblurring or enhancing the video. Sometimes things start small like this, and then before we know it, things progress and it becomes big things. Footsteps in the sand are a great analogy, says Jill Walker, a professor at the Center for Digital Narrative at the University of Bergen in Norway. You know someone made those footprints. With an analog camera, you know something was in front of the camera because the film was exposed to light. But with algorithms and AI, what does this do to our relationship with reality? And then they make this comparison to Photoshop, which at first I was in agreement with this comparison, but the more and more this AI technology develops, the more I'm not so sure that this is a fair comparison. This concept of Photoshop, and I think it's different. I don't think it's the same. But anyway, they make a comparison to Photoshop here. But Woolley says the use of machine learning to edit YouTube videos without users' knowledge risks blurring the lines of what people can trust online. Exactly. This case with YouTube reveals the ways in which AI is increasingly a medium that defines our lives and realities, Woolley says. People are already distrustful of content that they encounter on social media. What happens if people know that the companies are editing content from the top down without even telling the content creators themselves? And then they kind of end on a high note where, the YouTuber is saying, YouTube changed my life, and I'm happy with YouTube overall. It's a great company. And I agree. I don't want to come across like I want to bash YouTube as a company. I'm just saying this particular thing that happened is not the best. And I do wonder, again, like I said in the past or earlier, I worry about the precedent that it might set for the future. Also, I wonder, will we ever get that AI opt-out button? And I also wonder if they're still adding that, because they never said in their statements whether or not they turned it off. They never said, okay, we see you guys are upset, we're going to turn it off for now. They just said, we're going to eventually add an opt-out. So that to me sounds like they might still be doing this experiment. They might still be adding this AI feature to shorts. Okay, so now I have one more article to get to read, and we will be done for today. Okay, so this article comes from The Conversation, and I think it had some really great reporting in it, and I wanted to go through it. So the title says, YouTube's AI editing scandal reveals how reality can be manipulated without our consent. The issue came to the fore recently with YouTube's controversial decision to use AI-powered tools to unblur, denoise, and improve clarity for some of the content uploaded to the platform. Also, I wonder about this some situation because, yes, they did say that in their statements as well, but I'm a little bit skeptical about some, but okay. And when they say some, what do they mean? So from the BBC article, it seems like Mr. Woolley understood that to mean they're applying it to the top viewers, or to the top YouTubers. So the people that would get the most views. Again, now I'm thinking from an experiment standpoint, why would you do it that way? Wouldn't you want to start small and maybe use some YouTubers that don't have that many followers at first to just see, okay, how is this working? Is it working well? Why would you start with the top most visible if you're trying to train your model to learn how to do this? Why would you start with the highest visibility possible? I mean, I don't know for sure if that's what they did, but it seemed to be from the BBC article that that's what they were thinking, that they meant when they say some content, but we don't know for sure because YouTube did not really specify. This was done without the consent or even knowledge of the relevant content creators. Viewers of the material knew nothing of YouTube's intervention. Without transparency, users have limited recourse to identify, let alone respond to, AI-edited content. At the same time, such distortions have a history that significantly predates today's AI tools. Okay, then they, of course, show the YouTube liaison's statement. Disclosure is one of the simplest tools we have to adapt to an increasingly altered AI-mediated reality. Research suggests companies that are transparent about their use of AI algorithms are more likely to be trusted by users, with the user's initial trust in the company and AI system playing a significant role. Exactly. So this is kind of what I was just saying. I do believe that if they would have just disclosed this, if they would have been transparent about it, YouTube, I think this would have went a lot better. People probably still would not have been happy, but it would have went better. People would have felt more trust towards YouTube. So even there, they are agreeing that research suggests that people will trust you a little bit more if you're transparent. Oh, who would have thought of that? While users have demonstrated diminishing trust in AI systems globally, they have also shown increasing trust in AI that they have used themselves, including the belief that it will inevitably get better. Okay. So why do companies still use AI without disclosing it? Perhaps it's because disclosures of AI use can be problematic. Research has found disclosing AI use consistently reduces trust in the relevant person or organization, although not as much as if they are discovered to have used AI without disclosure. Exactly. Okay, maybe the YouTube people would say, well, this is why we didn't disclose it, because we're going to lose trust anyway. So they're saying here that people still lose trust once they realize you've used AI, regardless of what's going on, they're going to lose trust with you. But they're still saying it's still less if you're transparent about it, which I agree. I still agree. I think so basically, you're going to lose trust regardless, but if you let us know in advance, then the trust is a little bit like you lose, like you maintain a little bit more. Beyond trust, the impact of disclosure is complex. Research has found disclosures on AI-generated misinformation are unlikely to make that information any less persuasive to viewers. That makes sense. However, they can make people hesitate to share the content for fear of spreading misinformation. Exactly. So basically, it still persuades people. It's still, AI-generated content still persuades people at the same level as real content. But if people know it's AI-generated, they are less likely to spread it because they don't want to spread misinformation. Sailing into the AI-generated unknown. With time, it will only get harder to identify confected and manipulated AI imagery. Even sophisticated AI detectors remain a step behind. Another big challenge in fighting misinformation, a problem made worse by the rise of AI, is confirmation bias. This refers to users' tendency to be less critical of media, AI or otherwise, that confirms what they already believe. Fortunately, there are resources at our disposal, provided we have the presence of mind to seek them out. Younger media consumers in particular have developed strategies that push back against the tide of misinformation on the internet. One of these is simple triangulation, which involves seeking out multiple reliable sources to confirm a piece of news, which I think is great, and I guess is what we're going to have to do until things get better. We're going to have to, before sharing something, confirm it across multiple platforms and across multiple sources, because at some point, we're not going to be able to tell what's real and what's not, which is, again, I don't really want to live in a world like that, so I hope I hope we come up with something better than that, but I do think that that's a good solution for now. Users can also curate their social media feeds by purposefully liking or following people and groups they trust, while excluding poor quality sources. But they may face an uphill battle, as platforms such as TikTok and YouTube are inclined towards an infinite scroll model, right, that encourages passive consumption over tailored engagement. While YouTube's decision to alter creators' videos without consent or disclosure is likely within its legal rights as a platform, it puts its users and contributors in a difficult position. Exactly. And given previous cases from other major platforms, as well as the outsized power digital platforms enjoy, this probably won't be the last time this happens. Exactly. So again, great reporting coming from the conversation. It likely will not be the last that we will see of something like this, but I do think we should keep an eye on it. We should be aware that this kind of thing might be going on in the background of course, not just YouTube, but other social media platforms that we use. I know we may not have that much control because we're not the big corporations, but we do have some say. And if we voice our concerns, maybe we can affect a little bit of change if there's something happening that we don't agree with. Anyways, thank you so much for watching today's video, and I will catch you in the next one.